more stronger in MFIs, and either by design or because of necessities, you end up meeting the customers once a month for sure, but very often more than once, sometimes even 4 times a month. That needs to continue as it is. There's no doubt about it, because that's what make MFIs unique. However, I think with evolving times, this only one method of communication where the loan officer is the face of the MFI needs to evolve a little bit. And why? Because this model also has, like all of the models, has a few challenges. And that kind of became more prominent during the COVID-induced lockdowns. First of all, I think when loan officers are the only agents of the bank who talk to the customer, then you typically see that the communication is not standardized. So every loan officer has their own way of communicating, and sometimes a lot of information gets lost in the translation. The other point is, we all know that we are in an industry where the attrition is very high. It's a very people-intensive industry, and in spite of our best efforts, attrition continues to remain high. So when that happens, there's an associated set of challenges. The connect with the customer gets lost. Often there is no proper handover, and the customers kind of feel lost for a while before the new loan officer takes that place. In times of emergencies like the lockdown, if there were only loan officers we would have depended upon, the communication would have broken, right? And that's what happened in most cases. Then there are a couple of other points which are important in terms of the business case as well. Is basically there are a lot of repetitive work, a lot of operational issues which the loan officer handles, and what that does is at times reduces the productivity and bogs down the loan officer. So your insurance queries, your service queries, which actually need to just be sent to somebody centrally. If the loan officer continuously handles that, then their other work gets impacted. And again, if the loan officer, there's a lot of subjectivity in how the loan officer handles, because of workload, sometimes the queries don't get resolved, and that leads to some sort of a gap in customer satisfaction. So there are challenges, and we need to do something about it. Now, what is it that we are supposed to do is what we'll try to address. Just before I go to the next slide, we will have a quick Q&A session after the presentation as well. But meanwhile, if you have any question, please feel free to write it down on the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer it. So as I think we spoke about the fact that the loan officer is not going anywhere, the loan officer has to be the face of the MFI for sure. But can we do something to supplement what they're doing? And here we are looking at possibly digital communication channels. So what it will do is two things. One, it will help the loan officer create standardized communication. And secondly, it will take some workload away from the loan officer and enable digital channels to reduce the workload and increase the efficiency. So the best possible way we maintain after doing a lot of research is a combination of tech and touch, where loan officer is the primary point of contact. But in case the loan officer is not there, or in some cases when it's beyond the work hours, the customer also has a recourse to a digital channel. Move to the next slide, Anjana. So from 2020, I think we did a lot of work around trying to find out how do customers essentially react to digital channels? How do they use digital channels in today's date? Remember, we are still in a country where about 40% of the devices are actually feature phones. A lot of customers are not, fully financially literate, fully not literate. So it's difficult to have text communication via text with them. And there's some interesting observations which have come up, and I'll request my colleague Anjana to talk about that. Over to you, Anjana.
Thank you, Dave. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes.
So Axion has done research with multiple partners around the country on different communication channels. And what we have found so far is one, customers consider some of the channels like SMS and IVR as one-way communication channels. So they are not likely to respond back to the FSP through those channels, and they are used to just passively consuming the content from there. So if you want them to respond back, there's an element of habit change which you have to create. Then second is that fear of using new channels. So money is a sensitive topic, and trust is at utmost importance on getting them to use a channel. And the easiest way to get them trust a channel is for their influencers to authorize those channels. So let the loan officer or their husband, their peers, let them use it or authorize it, and then go to the customer with the channel. Then third is that decision making is never instantaneous. They would take the information, deliberate on it, discuss with their peers, family, and then take a decision. So it's important to provide them a continuous channel of support so that they can get back to it when they are ready. Then low self confidence. It restricts them exploring new channels on their own, and it is especially true for women given the gender barriers. So it's important for the FSP to give them hand holding, give them support, and through different channels so that they are ready to use the communication channels as we intend them to. We also try to map out how they seek information throughout the product journey. And what we have found is that they are most likely to get to know about new loan products or credit products in general through their peers. Could be their neighbor, family friend, etc. During application, all the information that they receive is from the loan officer, and by disbursement, they are likely to think that they have all the information in hand, and they won't ask where they can get more information from. So that important piece of information on how they can get to FSP is lost here. And when they have any doubt or when they need any information, they're more likely to wait for the next group meeting than actively seek out, maybe going to a branch for that piece of information. So what happens ultimately is when they need information desperately, they don't have any other source or they don't know about any source other than the loan officer or branch. Um, this is on communication in general. Talk to customers who are already using digital channels, and these are the themes that emerge through our conversations. One is trust, and it's amplified when it comes to digital channels because there is a general fear of fraud that's going on, and they need an FSP representative or a known person to uh, to assure that the channel is right and the information that they get from the channel is right to continue using it. Then flexibility. So the most important feature that they find on digital channels is the flexibility. They can use it whenever they want, wherever they want, without the hassle of calling up the loan officer or going to the branch. And then appropriate channels. As we discussed before, some of the channels are considered one way, like SMS and IVR. So if you want the customer to respond back, you have to either create a habit change or use other channels like WhatsApp, which they already see as two-way communication channels. It's not only familiar channels, it's also familiar formats. So customers are more likely to understand or receptive to an information when it's through audio visual than text. When it is audio visual or text, language is very important. It has to be simplified, colloquial, and not the pure script. And gender, that amplifies every barrier. Could be illiteracy, low confidence, lack of mobility, social norms. Everything amplifies how women can use digital channels. And for example, it's important that you convince the family first and then go to the women so that it's more likely for her to use it. So that's also a theme that we saw all through the research. And then customers need actionable information when they want it. So some of the use cases that we heard a lot during the research is one, EMI payment confirmation, then information on remaining EMIs, when is the next EMI due so that they can plan their expenses better, how to apply for a new loan, what happens if they don't repay on time. So these are all the actionable information they need when through the communication channels. Now I will hand it back to Dev to talk about how we can create an omni-channel experience for customers. Dev, you're on mute.
Thanks. So one standout thing that we would like to point out from our previous from the previous slide is basically when we looked at the kind of communication which institutions generally send to customers, most of them, even though they're sent in the vernacular language, they're transliterated, and customers are only able to understand parts of it. So you would typically end up using terms like RIN instead of loan. And customers are very comfortable knowing loan. So you don't need to exactly translate that word. Similarly, instead of Nazdiki, which means near, the messages generally say things like Nikattam, which is not colloquial. So customers are not again able to understand. So it's very important to understand the colloquial use of terms and then incorporate that. And with the use of NLP or natural language processing, I think that is becoming much and more simpler. So there is a way to kind of figure that out. Coming back, I think what we have seen is one, we all agree that there needs to be a coordinated approach between tech and touch. Two, we have also seen that customers may value the digital channel, but it's still a latent need. So the loan officer, I think, needs to be there. Also, there are gaps in the digital channel as well, which the customers still face. So, I mean, how should you essentially approach it? One is tech and touch, but then tech and touch can't be two watertight components, right? You can't have the loan officer talking on a different plane and the digital channels talking on a different plane. What digital channel you use is another topic of discussion, but the point is that the experience that the customer has needs to be seamless, which is they can move from one channel to the other when needed. It needs to be synchronous. So the loan officer, the branch, and the digital channels kind of need to convey the same information and need to convey the same sort of experience as such. And how do you do that? Essentially by integrating a repository or a CRM tool, which has all the customer information and all the customer transaction information, so that no matter which channel the customer goes to, they kind of get the same kind of experience. Another example of this is that, let's say the customer, you start with a WhatsApp channel to generate leads, and you, let's say, do one or two pre-selection questions on WhatsApp, and then the lead goes to the branch. Now, if the customer has to start the journey from the very beginning, you can be rest assured that the customer is not using WhatsApp in the next instance. So what you have to do is that transfer that information so that when it goes to the loan officer has all that information already. The customer has already interacted, and this can be across channels. There can be SMS IVR, there can be agent networks, there can be mobile app, there can be WhatsApp, or there could be branch. Idea is it should be seamless and it should be an omni-channel experience for the customer. Next slide, Anjana.
If one question was there in between, somebody has put a question in the chat box saying that why digital communication is required in microfinance?
Yeah,
why
so I
digital
think
communication? Yeah,
I think it's a valid question, but as we started the presentation, we spoke of the fact that we still believe that the loan officer plays a very important part. But I think there are some gaps, and the gaps essentially are around the fact that you have a lot of attrition. A lot of times, the communication provided by the loan officer is subjective, right? Depends upon the skills of the loan officer to communicate. Then we all know that loan officers at time can get overburdened, so some of these communications can get slipped. So any ideal communication channel should have alternate avenues for the customer to reach out. Loan officer is fine, but what if the loan officer is not there that day? What if they need an information at 8 p.m. when the loan officer is not there? So to supplement the loan officer's effort, I think it's very important to have a digital channel as well.
right.
Hope that answers your question. We could discuss this further. Yeah, Anjana, you want to go to the next slide? Again, this just kind of talks about what do we need to think of when we are integrating digital channels. The first part is which channels to use. Please do remember that whatever channels we use, we need to ensure that we don't leave out customers. So if your customer base still has 40% feature phones, then you can't think of a smartphone only app, right? Then, do the customers use the app? Because in a lot of instances, what we have seen is that while they install an app during the dispersal process or during the group training process, as soon as the transaction gets over, they delete the app because there's very limited space in their mobile phone. So then, use channels which the customers are familiar with and would tend to use it for a longer period of time. WhatsApp can be a great option for people who own smartphones, at least at the family level. But otherwise, you could look at smartphone, SMS and IVR as well. The other is, as we said, communication. Now, how do you communicate? We would always recommend that you look at the language that is used to communicate with the customer. Not only does it need to be in the vernacular language, the terminologies need to be such that the customer uses it. They need to be colloquial so that the customer can relate to it. It shouldn't look too different from how they communicate with the loan officer as such. The third is technology, as we said, having a CRM, and I don't mean a fancy, huge customer 360-degree, but having a CRM which records and customer transaction and can be used by all customer touchpoints is, I think, fairly essential in today's date. And the fourth and the most important point is change management. I think the other points can still be tackled, but a biggest hindrance to adopting a new channel is essentially the doubts that either the internal employees have or the customer employees have. And through efficient change management, you can do is answer that question for your own employees, answer that question for customers. So tell your loan officer that how does an implementation of a digital channel actually reduce their workload and help them and is not a threat to them. Similarly, for customers, you need to answer that why would they adopt this? What is the advantage to them? So you need to answer that question. And the third is adequate training. It's not just enough to launch a channel and hope that the customer will learn it themselves and the loan officer will be able to learn that themselves. You need to train everybody on what to do when you have a challenge, how to do a basic troubleshooting, and when you run into a challenge, who to reach out to. So you have to take care of those aspects as well. Moving to the next slide, Anjana. So we'll talk about a very interesting case study. We had started working with a large microfinance institution in India in 2021. The idea was, how do we look at multiple channels to reach out to the customer? The same context that we're talking about, which is just beyond the branch network. And initially, the thought process was that why don't we go with an app? Then there was a whole question on how many people will end up using that app. So we finally decided that instead of an app, what we should look at is multiple types of channels which is accessible to the customer. So we thought of the WhatsApp channel, SMS IVR channel, agent network, along with the branch. And the idea was that all of these channels should work in a seamless and omni-channel and provide an omni-channel experience to the customers. So while we implemented this, one challenge which came up was interesting challenge was around usage of WhatsApp. And over the next few slides, Anjana will talk about it. What was the challenge and how did we tackle it?
So this WhatsApp chatbot was launched as part of this omni-channel strategy back in September 2022, and within 6 months of launch, we had got 13,000 users, over 13,000 users using the chatbot, as well as 85,000 and plus interactions in the chatbot. We had 3 live use cases in there. They could check their account balance or generate a mini statement, or it had a option to call the contact center, and it was also available in all the languages. So we had ticked all the boxes that we could. And when we analyzed the user data, what we found is that instead of all the designing we had done according to whatever research findings we had got, the user data showed about 50% drop off from first use to repeat use. So only 50% of the customers who first said hi and did a use case, went and opened the WhatsApp chatbot for a second time. And we wanted to know why it happened. So we went to the field, talked to customers at different levels of user journey. And we also talked to loan officers to know how they're pitching it to the customers, how they are responding, what the feedback of the customer about the product is and all. And we found three major barriers that caused this drop off. And one was lack of perception of utility over alternatives. The current method of finding could be the account balance or contacting someone in the bank was to call up the loan officer. And the customers are used to doing that, and they don't find a reason to shift that habit to using the WhatsApp. There wasn't any additional benefit for them to shift to WhatsApp. Then second was the lack of trust, and it's a theme that we saw all through the presentation. So they they would rather trust the signature of the loan officers on the loan card than an information that they get from the WhatsApp chatbot. And the third was absence of a habit of using the chatbot again and again. So when we talked to customers who had gone all through the customer journey, we found that they had a habit of using it at a particular time for a particular reason. So there was a lady who used to use that chatbot every month to know when the EMI is due so that she can plan her expenses better. So that habit was absent in other customers. So, and given all these barriers we had found, we came up with recommendations addressing each. And I would like to focus on the third one, that's absence of a habit. So we wanted to create a product that becomes a habit for the customer to use. And we used a framework called habit loop to come up to identify what we can do. So the habit loop divides a habit into three parts: a cue, a routine, and a reward. You get a cue, you do the routine, and you receive a reward. The existing habit of the customer that we wanted to change was calling up the loan officer when they need information. We wanted to shift that to opening the WhatsApp and chatting with the chatbot. And behavioral science says that the easiest way to change a habit is to make the reward sweeter for the second one. So we came up with an idea that customers who are regular users, so let's say someone who is using the chatbot for 5 consecutive months in the past, will be awarded something. Could be just a company merch on the group meeting, so that the reward is better than just calling the loan officer. So that was a set of recommendations. And then the second best method to change habit is to make sure that the second routine is as similar as to the existing one. So one of our strategies was to change from calling it a chatbot to a digital loan officer, so that the perception of calling a loan officer and talking to a digital loan officer is similar, and there is minimal barrier in shifting the behavior. And then, so these two will help in getting more and more customers adopt that solution. And then to increase engagement in the product, what we did was to introduce new queues. So the FSP would encourage the customer to use the WhatsApp chatbot in every customer meeting. So they repeat it enough times and they would do it on their own. So that's how we use this framework to identify strategies to increase adoption and engagement. Dave?
Yeah, thanks, Anjan. I think this is a very interesting case study, and there were so many other interesting, facets that we found out relating to the customer and the usage behavior during our implementation. We'll be happy to, connect separately and let you know if this is of interest to you. The takeaway largely from our work was twofold. I think, we as wanted to reiterate that we are saying that the loan officer continues to be critical to the communication strategy of the microfinance institution, but there is a room for lessening the burden and also providing customers with the additional support through the adoption of digital channels. But how you implement the digital channel is critical for your success. So And the key is to make it usable for the customer and use language which the customer understands. So that's it from Anjuna and me. It was indeed great talking to you. Any questions I'm happy to take now or at the end of the presentation, whatever you think, Sangeeta Sehwal works.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. It was a wonderful presentation from your end. And just I would request these participants to hold for some time. Please do write your queries and everything. Devdut and Anjuna will be there.
Chat box.
Yeah, in the chat box also you can use it, and afterwards, after a brief discussion with the practitioners, we'll once again come back to you with the open discussion. So we do have three practitioners and very senior practitioner. One is Subhranshu Patnaik, Executive Vice President from Muthoot. Second one is Anil Quatra, Operational Excellence and Innovation at Satin Credit Care, and Ms. Kranti Sethi, President Human Resource at Swatantra. So all three of you are here. It's good to get you people over here and hear from you. My first question to all of you, that do you really see the gap between these end officers, the loan officers, and the clients? What's your view on this? I know Anil will be on and off because he has some connectivity problem. So if I can ask Subhranshu first,
Yeah.
that are you really seeing the disconnect? Yes.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Very good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank you, Sa-Dhan and Action team for arranging this meeting. So a little bit about me. I am Subhranshu Patnaik, heading the Human Resource Piece in Muthoot Microfinance Limited. Uh, as you know about our company, we operate 18 states with 10,000 employee base with 2.6 million customer base. And the question is quite relevant to us. Having said that, the ecosystem we are working and the category of customer, the category of employees we are catering, it is bound to happen. There would be some gap in communications. But the major question we need to ask how to bridge that gap. Yes, we are facing some gap, and we need to understand first from where this gap is coming. So when the loan officers get oriented before he joins to the company, I have seen many of the companies only talks about your job role is about collecting money and meeting the customer at the money. So it is not what we need actually to communicate to the prospective candidate to any of the company. We need to talk about the microfinance, all about the origination of the microfinance, what is the business and why it is so, who are our customers, and the same after you giving the proper orientation, the candidate himself will understand what would be his role or her role. So that is point number one. Second point is post orientation at the time of induction. The people who are giving induction, we should also check whether they are thorough about the complete objective of the microfinance, complete objective of the business what we are into. And the third point is to talk about the supervisory communication to these people, because what happens, there are a lot of layers reaches to the lower level in the microfinance. Once something decided from the top, it has to come to the down. So the communication when it is reaching to the down, we need to ensure that the communication is not disrupted in between any level. That is the point number three. Now the coming to the uh, major point is while we were many of our companies are sending all this new changes, everything through a circulars. So we need to understand whether this circular are really understood by the loan officer and whether it is be vernacular language. We were talking about vernacular plus colloquial language because these people are local level peoples. They don't understand much of English. However, they might be tech savvy, but the communication has to be very crisp and clear, which need to go to the customer. And the major point which nobody talks about is cluttering in the customer mind, because we know it is not only my company or Muthoot or Swathantra or Sa-Dhan is going and meeting the company means customer. There are multiple people are going and meeting the same customer. So the cluttering effect happening in the customer mind, maybe the communication has been very clear from the loan officer side, but we need to understand how it is impacting the customer mind. Because here we are talking a customer is a very normal customer, below poverty line customer, literacy level is low. And what is the impact of this particular things is impacting the customer. So these are the points where there is a gap. Yes, there is a huge gap and we are also addressing to it. Yes.
Thank you very much, Subramsu. I will now go to Anil. I mean, with the same question. Are you seeing the gap? And if you are seeing the gap, what kind of gaps are there?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Saibal. Saibal, am I audible?
Yes, you are
Yes,
very
you
much audible.
Yeah, great. Thank you. See, first of all, thank you, Saibal, Gigi sir, and everyone available on the call to be here for this discussion, which is really gonna be fruitful and an amazing presentation given by Devdut and Anjana in terms of whatever research they have done. Because to tell you, normally whenever we go through these researches, it looks more over Gyan, but this was all about the practical reality and what we see day in, day out. So I think that's really important. And to go on and discuss on the topic, I'll just brief about myself. So my name is Anil Quatra. I've been with Saturn for close to 6 years now. And Saturn as an institution is an organization with close to 2.7 million customers, with present in 24 states, close to 12,000 people all over the organization. But yes, 7,000 plus loan officers. Uh, Coming to this interesting topic, the gap is certainly there, and and I would say, see, it starts with two important aspects: the quality hiring of your field officers and the quality hiring of your clients. So when I say hiring of clients, it's about the acquisition of clients. If the communication starts from the day you probably get your client into the system, but to get a client into the system with set process and policies, you will have to ensure that the quality of hiring is proper. You'll have to ensure that the training that is given to your people is adequate. We are into this business where the dynamics of this entire business model are changing almost every day. RBI is coming out with new regulations, say SROs like Sa-Dhan and say MFIN come up with a lot of new changes and a lot of advisories coming to us every day. Are our people being trained on that? That is really important. Is it a one-time training where the induction is given? Is that sufficient, or do you need refreshers, say, every time and then? So these are little important things. Then yes, when it comes between the client connect, there are a lot of things to be thought through before you put your field officer or a loan officer to attend, to probably go and attend a center meeting or probably acquire clients. Could be a language barrier. Have I placed a guy who's only comfortable in Hindi and Punjabi in a state of West Bengal? Would that really work for me? Would that be a barrier? Yes or no? This has to be thought through. Time constraint. Am I actually overburdening my field officer or a loan officer? The right number could be 3 center meetings per day, 4 per day, 5 per day. Every organization today may have a different number. But the important thing is, we say the communication is only effective when both the parties probably really understand and communicate in the language that is understood to both. So one would be the language barrier, other would be the time constraint. Then comes your say follow-ups. So as of today, with our guys being burdened with a lot of targets, pressures, so so there are instances wherein you'll see one of your field executive, he's spending less amount of time doing a center meeting, but spending more of his time in the second half going and acquiring clients because there's a pressure, because there's an incentive link. So could there be an incentive link to probably spend those 30 minutes in a center meeting? Could be something different to think through. Then when it comes to your technology and other aspects, there are a lot of things where Devdut and his team has mentioned. Maybe once we go ahead in the call, we will discuss all those things. But yes, the important part is if you're hiring someone who's a quality resource, a quality training has been provided, right language, right placement of this field officer into a right branch, then ensuring that everything he's doing in the field for a month, 2 months is being monitored by his supervisors. I think these are few things which will bridge a lot of gaps when we probably move forward. So I think for now, this is what I can share. Maybe we'll build on the conversation going forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now my next eminent speaker is Kranti Sethi. Kranti, once again, the same question to you. I want to understand the gaps. Uh, so where are you seeing the gaps? Is there any gap? If it is there, what are those gaps basically?
Sure, yeah. Thank you.
It's a-
Thank you,
it's a-
Seville. And thank you, Team Sa-Dhan and Axion, for giving me an opportunity and all of us to be here. It's pleasure to be back on a session along with Sa-Dhan. Once again, as Anil rightly mentioned, the presentation by Axion was really, really good, some deep insights, and will definitely be helpful. While, my co-attendees here, speakers here, Anil and Shubhranshu has beautifully covered most of the areas of gaps that, areas or perceptions or gaps, whatever that we discussed. They've covered most of it. My only 2 cents is that, while these gaps do exist, the most important thing which I feel is that if we could bring in a lot of standardization in basic processes, the way we operate in the industry like us as MFI. See, the businesses are same. I mean, the business is same. People come from similar backgrounds. The regulations are same. The processes, the kind of compliances that we need are the same. If all the organizations, MFIs coming together, standardize, then there is no scope that we leave behind for an ex-company field officer doing an Y activity, right? So basics, if remain the same, what we really need to work on is, as an industry, how do we define culture for our the entire field force. Why I would want to put across the culture is, like Anil just mentioned about the timings, right? Whether there are pressurizing situations in work, the incentives are at stake, people stretch beyond hours, right? So, for example, if I have to speak about Swatantra, I'm sorry, I know I just went directly into the discussion and did not introduce myself, but just before I begin with talking ahead on my perception on the culture, my name is Kranti Sethi and I head HR for Swatantra. It's been slightly over 7 years that I have been associated with Swatantra. When I began, we were around 50 branches, 500 employees, and about in 4 states. As we speak today, we are in 19 plus states, close to 8,000 employees, and close to 900 odd branches. So that's the span in the last 7 years that I have seen Swatantra grow. Few basic hygiene factors that we maintain here, which I feel that may not be a similar cultural experience, with our, colleagues in the similar industry in other organizations. And if that could be taken care, I think we'll be able to manage the cultural aspects, the timings, right? Number one, hiring practices. If, for example, an organization A accepts a particular pedigree in terms of education, okay, for freshers, and for experienced, we have certain categories that we can define. One dominated employee going and joining another organization, okay, in spite of feedbacks, is a major cultural shock that we receive in spite of information. This is a gap that I see happening largely. So how do we, I mean, what happens? That, what happens to the end customer is a result which we come to know later on, after a few months down the line, there's a major fraudulent activity, financial misappropriation happening. So culturally, if we take care of little nuances, strengthen our processes of quality hiring, making sure that what kind of background that we are looking at in terms of a candidate joining our organization, joining our industry, right, makes or breaks the entire perception of the industry as a whole. All our employees are client facing. So field officers are client facing, and they are the ones who make it or break it with us. All our other processes are fine, right? There is risk team taking care of clean monitoring, but once the damage is done, we have no control over anything. And hence, I feel that uh, when we talk about uh, organization and practices, having standardization in basic cultural expectations for industry has to be there. We'll come to the organization later, because that is something which every organization will be unique to the organization. So I think the gap is, in addition to what Shubhranshu and Anil has mentioned, I think largely we will have to look into setting the basics right, create a culture, a very, very strong culture for the industry, and then organization has their own culture to take care of. This is just an addition. Rest everything is covered. I hope this differs and adds, a little different view.
Thank you very much, both of you. I'm not seeing
Anil is there.
Anil. Is Anil there? I don't think so, because he's there.
Okay.
Okay. So if Anil is there, so I will be rounding this discussion very fast with a specific question to all three of you. So do you think that digitization? So what I got from this Subramsu is basically the content of the training. There is gap. All three of you are accepting that there is a gap, but you are bringing three, aspects into it. Why is the gap is there? So first one, Subramshu was talking about the what do you call it, like the content of the training. So it may be on the on the larger basis. The horizon should be little bit wider than our product. Possibly this is what he was talking about. This Anil was talking about the quality. Yes, that's true. Quality of the human resource is very important. And he is also talking about this the dynamics between the center meeting time allocated for center meeting and the client acquisition, which one is more important for the loan officers. Possibly there is also, for that reason, there is also impact on the communication. Third one, Kranti is talking about very important thing is about the setting up the basics and talking about the culture, which is very important. So my last question to all of you will be, do you think that digitization will help this our communication? Would it help to make this communication efficient, or what is your feeling on that one? This is a very specific question to all three of you. So over to you, Subramshu.
Again, Sibyl, this is quite pertinent to correct what is happening. See, we were talking this digitalization or digitization of all the processes, policies. I will talk about a little bit of pre-COVID. We all the companies or everybody in the industry were in the similar kind of sourcing and collection methodology. But the COVID has come, and we know that history says every setback shows us a new opportunity. I'll talk about the demon time when the demonas hit in 2016. So that time there was a portion of the loans are going physical by hand to the customer hand, but post demon, so everything has been digitized. All the disbursement has become 100% digitized. Now the COVID has hit to us, and we were worried how to reach out this customer. Then the discussion point has been started how to reach out this customer in this lockdown scenario, keeping the considering the health and the condition of the customer as well as the our executives, means loan officers. So yes, digitization is one of the core to our industry, core to microfinance to reach out more efficiently to the customer. Uh, and that has a lot of positive aspects to it. One is we are talking about direct communication to the customer. Uh, Anil was talking about the stress of the what you can talk the relationship officer. Now we are experiencing such a scenario where these people are unable to take a day leave or maybe a 2 day off from their regular busy schedule. So think about a situation if that there is something, some process are digitized, for example, a collection process or maybe some of the documentation collection process. So the person can easily can take day off or maybe a 2 day off to spend some time with his family. That is number one. Number two, now what is happening? He was talking about the center meeting, going here and there, collecting the payment, all these things. For example, these are all customers. It is time bounded. All the center meeting are time coded. Today morning 7:30 one center meeting, 7:45 this other center meeting, 8:15 other center meeting. So if in case he has delayed in somewhere, he can directly call to the customer and ensure that the payment is coming digitally. That is also another plus point to the I'm talking about the loan officer benefit. And the third, the major thing is what we are experiencing in our northern state or some of the eastern state. There are a lot of robbery happening, a lot of snatching happening. So think about a situation if the collection is coming through digitization or digital mode. So this can be also be this can be also removed from our industry. So while I'm talking about digitization or collection process, I'm not talking about there is no role of relationship officer at the time of center meeting. I am talking the person who used to collect the money by hand, putting inside his bag and coming to the branch, at the end of the meeting. I am telling to convert that amount at the center meeting into digital mode. So that is one aspect to the loan officer's side. Then the customer side, he can directly interact with the customer. Means there are a lot of communication gap we are talking when a relationship officer talking to the customer. So if there is a channel where directly can reach out to the customer, so the company and the customer can directly interact if any new changes, any new processes, all about everything. So majority of the grievance what we see is maybe loan repayment, EMI settling, is third-party product payment. All these things is the major grievance what we see regularly in our customer grievance cell. So if the customer is having a app kind of things, what in Muthoot we have our own app, which is called as Mahila Mitra. Around 13 lakhs people are using that. So there they can easily see that the payment has been recognized to against their loan account, what are the outstanding, everything. And coming to the easiness of the app is already there in 10 languages. So it can convert the language depending upon the state. The customer can see the, in their local language. And there are a lot of benefits. And also we have ensuring that our customer to bring their business to digital mode. We have post-COVID, we have started a program called Restart India with association with INK. So it started in Kerala, then are moving to Karnataka and some of the places in eastern side Odisha. So we were teaching customers how to do their business through digital mean. So how to do the business through WhatsApp, how to get a GST, all these things, because these are all the small vendors. Their reach to the different customers are very limited. They are confined with the similar kind of locality or area. So where you bring the digitization to their business, it goes to the reaches, goes to the different level. So people can access their product and can do that. So these are some of the programs we were doing. So yes, to answer your question, uh, digitization is the going forward to make our industry more efficient and effective.
Okay, thank you very much, Subram. So, Anila, I will come to you. I mean, the same question, but with a different dynamics. Because you are in the thick of the operation side, looking at the quality of our these borrowers, many of them they are not educated, they are not literate also. Many of them they cannot use the technology. Many of them they are not having your this mobile, this what you call smartphone. So where are you seeing that this digitization of the communication will happen? If it happens, it will be successful. It may be a little bit critical question, but it would be good to hear from you as you are the right person to tell us because you're the thick of the business side. Yes, please. Over to you,
Sure,
Anil.
Saibal. I'll try to give best of my views. I think. See, see what you've asked is similar to a lot of comments that I've seen in the chat right now. People writing on the same lines saying that people may not be able to accept it. The acceptance may not be there. See, we'll have to understand that no one is saying that it's a regulatory barrier or someone is saying that you have to make digital mandatory. See, when you bring technology in, it is about creating a great customer experience. It's about making your loan officer's life easy. It's about ensuring that how do you ensure the services are delivered to the doorstep using technology as well, not probably saying that my human touch would go off. That would always be there. But can I make my field resource more productive? Can he be indulged in two more tasks? Do I this is the background to it. So now coming to it, as an institution, as an industry, we'll have to be very wise enough in choosing all these modes of technology and seeing what we are doing. See, we spoke about a lot in Dave's presentation as well in terms of your WhatsApp, chat boards, SMSs, voice blasts, push notifications. The first question every institution will need to ask itself: am I only doing it to show it to the investor fraternity? Am I only doing it since it's a regulatory requirement? Or I am doing it to actually add some value to my loan officer or my clients? That's the major question to be asked. Because in case your answer is the third one, there lies the actual essence of what we are trying to do. Because it is only, see, what happens is you identify a problem, then you create a solution around it. If the problem for me is, okay, no, I need
Right.
to be in technology, I need to have 10 different ways of accepting digital payments, I need to have 10 different technologies because I need to show it to the world am I doing, because there the intent is little different. I may not be even thinking about, is there a language barrier? What is the client even understanding my message? Is the client even reading that SMS? Is the right jargon or language being used? But coming on the contrary, if my thought is very clear, no, I'm doing all this to make my loan officer's life easy. I'm doing this to improve my operational efficiencies, keeping my client in the mind, then you'll always see that my languages are right, my fitment is right, my software design is very apt, it is very customer savvy. Everything I'm trying to do probably is say rounded off around the client and the loan officer, because these are two important components. Loan officer is the one who serves these clients, and these clients are the one who brings the business to me and the profitability. So I think that has to be a wise thing. So if I tell you about Sa-Dhan as of today, in technology we're doing a lot of stuff. OTP based KYC, we're trying for a eKYC, license is already there, we're building up with UIDI. The disbursement tax have come down with a disbursement to a customer being done in 7 8 days now. Majority of the companies with technology can disburse the client in the same day itself. Majority of the organizations today are using e-sign facility with UIDI, where the customer can come and there is no. So my idea there is not to probably show the world, see, this is something different. The idea is to create such a client connect that the client feels, oh, that's a wow moment where I enter the branch. I'm not supposed to sign at 10 different pages. It's only a biometric authentication and the bank validation happens and the money comes into my account. So it's all about creating that right ecosystem. Complaint redressal, what's your tag, are you actually tracking it, how it's being done, using of different cashless modes. And again, the important thing which I raised in the beginning was, are
Right.
you training your loan officers around each and everything? Because
Right.
it is this person who's little literate and he is going to meet a person who's actually illiterate. If you do not teach your person who's little literate, he may not be able to. You may spend crores of rupees in terms of bringing a technology, but if it is not understood by the client in the right spirit, client should feel that this technology, this enablement, everything is being done so that I am being served properly. The day you clear that message, I think this digital
100%.
technology and the
Yes.
enablement probably will take a big leap. And
Right.
lastly, taking a cue from going by, see, so my organization has given me a fancy designation saying head of operational excellence and innovation. This entire discussion is about innovation. Say they gave us a right idea of saying that they did a survey and say 14,000 odd customers could be using WhatsApp. Today, each of the organization is trying to create e-learning modules for their own employees. I am saying when 14,000 people can use WhatsApp, why can't I create an e-learning module for my client? Why to wait to go to a center meeting to give financial literacy? Why can't I create small modules, small capsules, small product voiceovers wherein I can send them over WhatsApp to my customers? The customer can read it. My guy can follow up in the center meeting. Ma'am, did you read it? Did you go through it? Did you understand anything? It could be a simple product voiceover with no language barrier written on. So I think it's
Yes,
all about innovation when it comes to digital technology. So I think
right,
that's
right.
probably the way forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You're talking about this, you know, that make this. First, we need to understand for whose benefit we are doing it. So we have to be understanding that the client has to be kept in center to develop anything. And this human resources need to be trained properly. Now, this question, I will once again go to Kranti, this training segment. So Kranti, you do have 2 minutes to tell us that what's the implication of this change in the human resource side, training side? So how how do you see this one? That if there is this shift is happening, what kind of trainings do you need to impart, or whatever it is there, it is adequate? Can you please empower us?
Um, Several, if I have to put it in a very simple way, trainings, any number of trainings you do, they are not going to be adequate, right? Because there is always going to be additions, deletions, new changes, and so the changes keep happening, and training has to be a way of life for everyone, is what, for all the organizations, for all of us, right? Especially when we look at our audiences, it is our field officers. Their understanding is limited, and the way organizations are growing and the way technology is changing, right? This has to be a need of the hour and a way of life for every organization. So, what kind of trainings can you impart? People, I mean, you can name it and we can have it. But what is important is to understand how life of an officer, loan officer, is impacted with the changes, organizations, and the regulations. Um, how they happen. If they are not updated and equipped with it, then there is a problem. So the way we do it in Swatantra is that each of the employee is from the orientations that Subhranshu mentioned about, till from orientations to people development, everything is covered, right, based on the roles of the organizations, roles of the employees. And it is important that we segregate what is the requirement. One is it the training is required for process, technology, new amendments, change of businesses, the product line, if any, and so on and so forth, right? So training for us in Swatantra, we breathe training, if I have to say that way. Another team handles it beautifully, and that thanks to COVID, we had no option but to go virtual. But we've also understood one thing is that virtual has its own limitations when it comes to training. I do appreciate and do hear Anil talking about how the e-modules and learning modules make a lot of difference on when we do it virtually. But we have seen that the difference here is more than virtual. When we pick up few important aspects in person, that has a very different impact than virtual. Because I can keep talking and explaining for an hour, but there is a limited engagement I see and receive.
Okay.
That's a challenge. There are
Yeah.
10 people calling to that particular employee or a professional, and then that person is distracted. That person is on WhatsApp, right? So how technology also has, digitization also has their own limitations. And if, as an organization, we know what is our requirement there and what is the end product we want, outcome of training, then we'll have to define. That's a limited point I would want to
Okay.
maintain.
Thank you, Kranti. I could understand. So all three of you are telling that there is a possibility of digitizing the communication you all three of you have actually identified three areas. Subramshu was talking about your this the support system development. Anil was talking about this whose benefit we have. It has to be client centric, and Kranti was talking about the content of the training and the process of the training. Thank you very much for your very insightful deliberation. I'm quite sure that the participants, they have understood this one and they are taking something out of this for their future. But now I will open this one for interaction between you people, the participants, and also there's Action. Devduta and his colleagues are there. So all of you now it is to the participants. So I am getting one. There is somebody called Subham Mehta. So Subham, over to you. And then there is this Anirban Majumdar. Yeah, Shubham, please.
Yeah.
If you can introduce yourself and ask the question.
Yes, I'm audible.
Yes, please, very much.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Gigi sir and entire Sa-Dhan team to organize this wonderful deliberation. So there are a lot of insights which we are getting. So we had talked about the communication channels from the loan officer to the customer, but I need to highlight the other side of it. In the sense, like after this change in regulations, also there is a lot of space which has been opened for MFI. And being an MFI, we also have a very leading role in terms of making aware the customer. As we had played, MFIs have played a very important role in financial inclusion. In the similar way, the MFIs have a very huge role in taking forward this digital inclusion also. So it is not only about communicating from this side, but once the market dynamics are changing and industry dynamics are changing, there is a lot of technology will be having a greater role, even though we have to continue the physical touch or the high touch, which we are also ensuring right now. So this is one part of it. The other side, when we talk, but there are the challenges which I think some of the speakers have already pointed out. When this new guidelines have come, we have floated a study which has been undertaken by some of the interns from B School, which have done some internship in our organization. So thing is, when they have almost interviewed around 1,200 household across Bihar, Odisha, and West Bengal. So what we came to know, there were two questions specifically which we asked: how many of them have access to smartphones? So almost 82% of them have responded that they have access to smartphones. But when we ask the second question, that how many of them are using the digital financial services, using this features which are there in the smartphones, so 4% of them were using it. So this is one part of it. When we talk about digitizing the collection, we have to understand that our segment is the segment which we are working with, and the customer segment, it is completely it's an unorganized sector where there are no digital transactions also. So even if somebody is selling a vegetable or a smart, he may be vending some items. So mostly the transaction happens as cash, especially in the backward regions or some of the states where which are not
Shubham,
tech-savvy.
Shubham, if you can make it shorter, if this is
Yeah.
what you are telling, these are your observations and understanding.
So
if you can make
so
it shorter, then we can
yeah,
give
so
it to other
I
people
wanted
also.
to share a very important piece of information here. So when we talks about the regulation, even the I think the regulator is towards means in favor of this. So there was a circular after implementation of this scale-based regulation. There was a circular from RBI for implementation of core financial services solution by the more upper layer and middle layer MFIs. So this particular circular talks about having a core financial services solution that should have a digital interface for a seamless customer interface and digital offerings and transactions relating to products and services anywhere and anytime facility. So even the regulator has
What has happened? I think
You're on mute.
Shubham is on mute.
You're on mute.
Shubham, you are on mute.
Sorry, sir. So I was talking about a circular which has been issued by Reserve
So
Bank.
yeah, we are aware
after
of it. What exactly you are trying
Yeah.
to tell in this?
So here this circular also talks about implementation of this core financial service solution.
Yes, very
This
much,
circular
very
talks
much,
about
very
this
much.
circular talks about seamless customer interface and digital offering and transactions relating to products and services with anywhere,
So
anytime facility.
are you trying to tell that this our regulator is also very pro for this digital interaction, right? Interfaces.
True, and they have given a deadline.
Yes.
In fact, they have given a deadline
Bilkul.
for middle
I
layer. It
agree
is
with you.
September 30, 2025, I think.
Yeah.
And from this quarter onwards, every NBFC has to submit a progress report.
Okay. Thank you very much. There is someone, Mr. Majumdar. So Mr. Majumdar was there. He wanted to ask something. Am I seeing him?
Is he still there?
Is he still there? That's what the thing is. So
Yeah.
please.
Hi. Am I?
Yeah.
Because
Go
I'm
ahead,
traveling,
go
please do not mind. I'm not switching
You are
camera
audible.
because it will consume much fun. Yeah, hi. My name is Anirban Majumdar. I head the learning and development team for Spa-Dhan School. Joined very recently, 5 months back. Prior to that, I was doing the learning and development team for our financial limited for last 6 years. So this is in brief introduction. So I would come down to the point which we were actually contemplating, we were thinking and giving our views. First of all, thank you to all the panel members over here. Thank you to Devdut, Kranti, Anil, and Shubhranshu sir. Thank you so much. And my point of view in terms of intervention of digitization in communication. So if we look at communication and if we look at the piece of communication between the loan officer and the customer, would go a little backward. So till the time COVID sets in, all the organizations, we are kind of struggling with the digitization of learning material and to sensitize our own loan officers and the ranks of the field team. Right. Why did I mention the word struggling? Because if you ask me, the core purpose of digitization in communication is to increase the awareness of learning it on my own. So that particular objective has not yet been achieved. That is what my observation in these two organizations of microfinance work. So first we need to see that whether we could achieve the objective. Like with our own employee, we could not achieve that. I am learning at my own pace. I am enjoying the learning and I am learning at my own pace and it is becoming productive. So when everybody spoke about training is a very important piece. Now to train the loan officers and then the same communication has to go to the customer. When you look at communication is a skill, right? So building a skill happens through a very deliberate practice. And when I say deliberate practice, it comes from the age-old systems of sports and military, where they do deliberately practice on the technical aspect of deliberate. So in our case, communication is one of the most important aspects.
Yes.
Which need to have a deliberate practice. So to have a deliberate practice, I really do not know right now whether the digitization will help or not. But what I know right now is that more time has to be invested in terms of thinking the strategy that how training will become much more fruitful so that the loan officer transmits the exact communication from HO that we are trying to communicate.
Right. Because agree with you.
We are Indian and actually not very. We say that we have to follow the standardization, but culturally we are not following standardization. Standardization is a concept which is a Western concept.
We could understand you that you are talking about the content, you are talking about the process. Yes, and also you are talking about the this what do you call it, like piloting the thing, understanding the thing, whether it is impacting or not. Yes, whenever we do anything, If we put it in practice first, we put it on pilot first, then we get the inferences, then we restructure it, once again redo it if necessary. So this is a process we are doing. What we are trying to understand, what we are trying to facilitate, we are basically trying to understand from Action also and you people also that whether this is important, whether this is working, and if it is working, how impactful is it on the client. Is there anyone who wants to ask any question, any queries or anything? Because at the wake of the time, we don't have much time. We need to.
Did you see the chat box? Anything?
Chat box. No, much.
Chat.
Nothing. Single type of no single type of digitization. My colleague is writing whether it is a single type of intervention and digitization. Possibly we are not looking at it. Is what Kranti was talking about. That this is the need. Kranti and all of us. I mean, all of our colleagues. They were talking about that we need different kind of channels for. Eventually, in Devdut's presentation also we got. We need different kind of channels for different geography, different segment. Then there is this woman are digitally illiterate. That's what we asked Anil, that looking at this, the status of our borrowers, whether it is working or not. So Devdut study is also telling that it is working, but possibly what we need to do, we need to do a bit more to understand more, but possibly it will work. But I do have my apprehension a bit because, I use all these, what do you call this? IVR, or what do you call this automated calls and everything. And so if I call, it will land me somewhere where I really do not want to understand that one. And then once again going back to the client executive. But this is also time consuming. We cannot give that much time for a single thing. So this is the kind of challenge for me. Anything Devdut you want to respond on this? These clients keeping this your in the mind that our clients are illiterate, they don't use this kind of communication channels and everything. And if we expect that they will be using chatbot, they will be using this IVR and all those things, whether it is working and it will work or not. That's my question to Devdut. Then possibly we need to go to Mr. Momin for his concluding remarks.
Sure. Saibal, I think I'll start with the point that you made. It's basically a broken journey in either IVR or WhatsApp, where you start the journey, but you'll end up in a place where it's an abyss, right? You don't know what you've got out of the conversation. You don't know where to go. So then the first thing that you need to do is ensure that you design a journey where you are able to give the customer some conclusive end to that conversation. So either lead them to a loan officer or answer their question, not lead them midway. So that's very important to go through the whole flow of the journey before implementing. On the second question, I think we had done some work around digital transformation of institutions across the globe, and in every geography across the globe, I think one important learning was that we need to design products for customers who are the least digitally and financially mature, not the customers who are the highest digitally and financially mature. And once, if you're able to do that, you might not be able to solve all the problems on SMS. SMS is typically is not a two-way communication system, neither is phone, right? Let's kind of first get our wrap our heads around that. But if we need to do design for the lower end customers in terms of digital maturity, we will have to give up some features. But on the other hand, we can't end up designing a fancy app or a WhatsApp chatbot, which actually doesn't connect to most of your customers. So keeping that in mind, always design for the customer who have the lowest digital maturity and the lowest financial maturity.
Yes, I can understand and I will trouble you once again at personal level to understand it more. But anyway, thank you very much, our speakers. We are appreciating your presence, your time, and your insights. It has been a wonderful discussion. I always like to talk to you. Once again, we will come back to you if we need something. Now, for the closing remark, I would request Mr. Momin to.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a very, very interesting deliberations we had. In fact, the presentation of Axion was quite interesting, and I'm sure everyone appreciated it. All the three speakers were excellent. Anil, Kranti, and Shukrashu all had given their own point of view, and also a couple of observations which given by the member or the participants were also quite valid. See, here we are not talking about substituting one with other. We're not going to substitute the physical meeting with a digital form of meeting, or we are not going to have a communication to the physical communication with a digital communication. You're only talking about how it can be made much more better, how the current situation can be made more better experience, user experience, better what do you call impact or better effectiveness. So efficiency, these are things which we are looking at. If we all know that the loan officer, the face of our MFI sector, they're all hard pressed. So if they can, their lives can be made a little more better. It will only add to the efficiency. Can only add better some more business, or it will make their lives better, and they will stick on to your organization, because we see the attrition is one of the major challenge we are facing. Kranti was facing it quite, I mean, almost on a daily basis. It's a big issue because attrition level is so high. So as I think there was only a said, or somebody has said that when attrition takes place, the communication also gets broken. Whatever we have, we want to we were communicating through one particular person. If the person moves out, that communication itself breaks up. Then the new person has to come. He has to get into that shoes, and it takes time. So how to make them the life better and keep them with us, and how we can give a better user experience to the. It is a challenge. It's not that, see, everything has a challenge. When a new thing is introduced, it becomes challenging. But then we need to take a little more effort to make them learn the art of using the devices, new technology. This can be easily possible. I know maybe some of the older generation will have a difficulty, but then with some efforts from our side, we are trying. We can definitely do that. Sa-Dhan had already initiated a process along with HSBC to impart digital financial literacy among the people, among our MFI members. So this has to be there. Then only we can make that they can also learn, and they can come up to the level which we can use. So this will be an additional channel, additional experience for them, and through which we can have a better efficiency and a better I would say that make the lives better for the people. So I am sure that today's deliberation must have been quite interesting to everyone, and it must have been learning to all of us. So I thank everyone for being here. I think almost everyone who started with us, most of them are continuing. That means discussions were quite interesting. Dropouts were very few. So I thank the speakers. I thank Axion. I thank all the members all the participants who joined here for this today's webinar. Thank you so much, and we'll continue these deliberations. It's not the end of it. We'll be continuing this discussions in the future also. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kranti. Thank you, Anil, and thank you, Patnaik
Thank
ji,
you,
and
Mr.
Anjana,
Mehdi.
and yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Giri sir.
Thank
Thank you
you,
very much.
Sebel. Thank you,
everyone. Thank you,
Sangeeta,
everyone.
Team Axiom, Anil and Shibranshu, CEO. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.